to tell somebody out loud, hey man, I'm struggling with pornography. How cringy is that? Because like, oh my God, this person's going to think I'm a pervert, a monster, sex crazed maniac, all those stories in our head. It is so cringy.
Welcome, brothers, to today's episode of the Porn to Purpose podcast. We're coming to you live here. I'm your host, Matthew Sinkovitz, my esteemed colleague and co-host, Yeadon Smith. Yeadon, awesome to have you with us here today, brother. Welcome.
Hey man, I am excited to be here today, as always. Love having these conversations.
Likewise. And we got a cool conversation coming up, an idea that Yeadon proposed. And as he was sharing with me kind of like what he proposed digging in on here today, I was like, oh yeah, this lines right up with P2P principles. So I'm looking forward to digging in. Yeadon, you want to go ahead and take it away? What do we got today, brother?
Today, Matt and I, we were talking. It's like, you know what we need to talk about today? We need to talk about the chasm of cringe.
Ooh.
Bum, 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 right? I need one of those podcasting things where I can pew, 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 ba-da-dum, right? The chasm of cringe. And I've been thinking about this in life because it's from the idea that anytime we start something new, it's cringy. Because we're not good at it. Right? I'm going to start. Matt, you had a real estate career. I was in real estate, right? The first time you gotta make a cold call, try to get a listing, call it for sale by owner, right? Like, so cringy. Oh my gosh. You're at a networking event and it's like, hey, do you know anybody who's talking about moving? Oh, it's so cringy, right? It's like, that internal resistance of angst and fear and all of that. Right, you're starting a blog, and you blast everybody on your email list like, "Hey, come subscribe to my blog." Right, you're starting a business and trying to get the word out. So it's like so many times in life when we start something new, we have this cringe factor.
Yes,
and let's just say, right, when it comes to porn recovery, that cringe factor is amplified 1,000-fold.
Through the roof.
That like off the charts cringy.
Yeah.
Because the story around porn, the way our culture, right? I mean, I know it's become more mainstream and everything, people talk about it, but let's be real, right? There are a few people, I would say they're wrong, but porn is not really something good, right? It's not we talked about the myths of porn. It's not a victimless crime. The industry there's all sorts of resources out there that it feeds the sex trafficking industry. Like, it's just not, it's toxic. It's terrible.
Yeah.
And added to the guilt, fear, shame that we're programmed with to talk about this, we just keep it so locked up tight because it's so dark and so dangerous and threatening our lives.
Yeah.
Like, man, to tell somebody out loud, hey man, I'm struggling with pornography.
Yeah.
Right? How cringy is that? Because like, oh my God, this person's going to think I'm a pervert, a monster, sex crazed maniac, all those stories in our head. It is so cringy. I mean, even me, just to be able to say porn in a conversation 3 years ago, hell no. No freaking way. No way.
Right.
Now it's like, now I don't blink. My kids talk about porn. It's like, hey man, let's talk. You guys, we're talking about porn now. Let's do it. Yeah. And so we wanna talk some, like, what is this like? We want to address the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
The chasm of cringe.
Wow. You know, this reminds me so much of my journey. And I would suspect most men tuning in here today, and I would suspect most men who have had the courage to go down this path. Some guys were, I encounter some men or some young men or, who like the conversation of sex and porn was normal in their home. Like, thank God, what a gift, and it sounds like you're actually creating that for your children, and what a gift that is for them. But that wasn't the case for me.
Yeah, and, me neither. Me neither.
For me, there was a huge stigma around it, big taboo subject, a lot of shame, a lot of hiding. And Yeah, man. Like for me, like gathering mustering the courage to be visible around this conversation, to admit that I needed support, and then begin taking steps in my recovery journey was hard, and it was ugly, man.
Yeah.
It was hard and it was ugly, and speaking to like the cringe factor, it was ugly. It was ugly, and it was difficult, man. And I fell down a lot. And if I would have taken those first series of falls to heart, maybe I would have given up altogether. But I've learned an idea that, like, for me, I apply in business, and that is like a willingness to do it ugly, to do it ugly. To show up, to create the podcast, even though it's just me on my iPhone, creating a cheap podcast, or shipping a social media post and it feels half baked, or, as you mentioned, having the real estate conversations, or starting the email list, whatever it is. Like, I'm willing to show up and just start doing the work and just continue to take the path and take the steps, because I know over time it'll get easier if I'm just willing to keep showing up consistently and do it ugly.
And I love that, do it ugly. There's a guy I follow where his name is Seth Godin. He writes a daily email. Love his stuff. And one of his emails mentioned from years ago is like, in order to be great, you have to be willing to be terrible first.
Yes.
If you're going to be a great writer, you start off as a terrible writer.
Yes.
You want to be a great songwriter, you start off as a terrible songwriter.
Yes.
You're going to be a great musician, right? I mean, I have 4 kids, and my daughter doesn't play any instruments, but my son played saxophone, drums, guitar, piano. Like, dude, listening to a little kid practice an instrument is so hard, so difficult.
Yeah.
As a parent. Fortunately, a 6-year-old, they don't have the cringe factor yet for practice. It's just like practicing piano, right? They're just like, I just practicing piano.
Yes.
And when I think about porn, I think, one, we talked about the effect. That cringe effect is amplified off the charts.
Yeah.
Right? We don't even have, the speedometer is pegged. And I mean modern speedometers that go up to like 145. That's still pegged.
Yeah.
Not like the ones back in the 80s that only go up to 85. So with porn, because of the conversation, because it's such a taboo subject, we all start in the same place.
Yeah.
We all start trying to figure this out on our own, in isolation, where it feels safe.
Yep.
There's no threat that anybody's going to find us out. Like, and man, this might be you listening to this podcast on your, like, dude, you're taking the first step. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, you are on the path.
Yes.
You've taken the first step of just searching for porn recovery. Maybe that's how you found this podcast. Searching it on Apple Podcasts, who knows where. But that cringe factor is real.
Yes. Bro, I love that you brought up Seth Godin, because I was sitting here thinking of a Seth Godin line that I heard in one of his books. I forget the name of the book. It was a recording. It was one of his audiobooks. It was a recording of him doing like a live presentation. It was maybe like 2 hours or 3 hours or something like that. And he proposed an idea out there in that recording. I'm not sure if it was his idea, but it was ship it.
Yes. Yeah. Just ship your work.
Exactly. And
ship your work.
I have that written down, and I was trying to think, who was that author? And then you brought up Seth Godin. Like, I'm so glad that you brought that up. That's so helpful. But yeah, similar concept. Like, it's more about the reps.
Yeah.
It's more about the reps, because as Yeadon always says, it's not about the man who shows up at 90%, 10% of the time.
You're going to see it. Let me drop it for you, Matt. You almost got it, but
all right.
You're butchering it. I love you so much, but you're butchering this, bro. Okay, so the man who shows up 90% of the time with 10% effort always outperforms the one who shows up 10% of the time with 90% effort.
That's what I was saying, yeah.
Right? We were saying the same thing, just different words. Yeah. Right? And partly with porn, right? Whether we've been programmed to think of it like, oh, this is a sin, it's evil, whatever sort of lens we have that is only guilt, fear, and shame,
Yeah.
we feel such pressure
Uh-huh.
to go from where we are to perfect sobriety like that.
Yeah.
Right? That's part of why it's kind of cringe. It's like, oh, I'm going to work on this myself after I get a month of sobriety. Then maybe I'll just like, hey, I got 30 days so far. Let's talk.
Yeah.
But you know what? 30 days never comes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It never gets there.
Man. That's it. And so it's about the reps. It's about the reps. It's about a willingness to like keep on the journey, and even when, as we've stated, and many of you may have experienced, like it's hard at the beginning and it feels almost impossible. I know there were moments in my recovery journey. I'm like, I guess I just get to resign myself to this because I don't see how it's ever going to change. Definitely that feeling of feeling trapped. But I'm reminded of another beautiful idea, which is not unique to the Porn to Purpose community, but we definitely utilize it and teach it, and we work with it, model it, I think. And that is when you do life the easy way, such as not engage in your recovery, not show up, continue to hide, keep using porn, right? Default to some of these instincts. When you live life the easy way, then life is inherently harder. There's more suffering, there's more pain, there's more destruction, right? We're robbed of so many beautiful things. But when we're willing to live life the hard way, we're willing to show up, we're willing to be visible, we're willing to lean in, we're willing to grow, we're willing to step into the light and embrace all the ugly aspects of ourselves, or the aspects of ourselves that we feel shame around, then life ultimately gets so much easier. Then life is easy.
It's choose your hard.
Choose your hard. Yes.
Which hard do you want?
Yes.
Do you want the hard work, right? Like eating, right?
Yeah.
Do you want the hard work of tracking what you eat, choosing the protein instead of the Dairy Queen,
right?
Choosing the higher nutritious calorie, nutrient dense, calorie light foods versus calorie heavy, nutrient light foods, right?
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's an uphill battle to make good choices when it comes to what you eat.
Yeah.
But, right? It's hard to go to the gym and lift heavy weight. It's hard to train for a marathon.
Yeah.
But that's the hard that I've chosen for my life, the lifting and the training. And it makes going to a daddy-daughter dance with my daughter and dancing for 2 hours easy.
Yeah.
Because there's no way to avoid hard in life.
Yeah.
There's no way to avoid it. What we do, we get to pick which hard we want. But most of the time, right, most men are going through life not even aware that they've picked hard.
Yep.
They think they're picking easy and it's making life hard. And they don't understand it.
Yep. That's absolutely it. So, I've talked a little bit about like my journey and what it looked like for me early on to begin leaning in, to begin getting visible, to begin raising my hand, saying, hey, I need support in this. Like, Yeadon, what did that journey look like for you early on, and what helped you begin getting traction in this cringe journey?
Man, so my journey, my attempts at dealing with this, really, when I was in my 20s, I was in full-time youth ministry, and I had an accountability buddy. We would talk, check in once a week, and conversation was always the same. How'd you do? Not good. How'd you do? Not good. Do better this week. Okay. Week after week. Maybe one of us had a week where, hey, yeah, neither one of us used porn that week. That was rare. That was not the norm. And being on a men's retreat with the church where they're talking about, but it's so difficult because in that religious practice in Christianity, which, I mean, I still love Jesus and I'm still following Jesus, but the tools that Christianity gave me to deal with porn, they did not work. They only added guilt, fear, because it's porn is put up on this such a terrible sin. Right? It's like it's trying to put so much pressure and make it so evil and so bad. It's like, oh man, if I touch it, I'm gonna die. To motivate people to motivate men to stay away from it. But what happens is, right? I'm using porn as a coping mechanism, and I don't have another coping mechanism that I'm aware of. And when life hits me and the emotional pain shows up and I'm frustrated or tired and lonely and angry, that part of me is like, hey man, you can't live like this. You cannot live without being able to cope with this stuff. This is the only thing we know of to cope with. Let's go get a dopamine hit from the web, from Pornhub, and make all these emotions fade to the background so you can function. Right?
Yeah.
And so my recovery journey was totally cringe for my entire career in youth ministry. Man, feeling like such a hypocrite talking about porn and sex when we'd have that conversation at youth group. I'm like, dude, I don't know what to do other than say this is so dangerous, you need to stay away from it. Right? Make it so dangerous that teenagers would just, oh man, I don't even want to mess with that. It's so dangerous.
Yeah.
And it didn't work for me. I doubt it worked for any of the kids in my youth group growing up. And then after I moved on from ministry, started with, multi-level marketing, then real estate. Now what I do in real estate, like, honestly, I was just trying to manage it as best I could so it wouldn't destroy my life. But even then, I still had all this cringe factor around the porn. I joined a mastermind for dads, the Dad Edge with Larry Hagner, and that was such a safe space to bring failures as a dad, failures as a husband, failures as a business owner, right? To lean in areas where I wasn't good, and those were those were kind of cringy conversations, so I could grow. But it really it didn't have the safety of being able to bring up pornography, even in such a safe space like that. And not because of them, but because of me. I had such a high cringe factor of bringing up I was so grateful that they brought you in for a sensei session to talk about porn. Like, oh my gosh, somebody's talking about porn. I'm very interested because this is a huge deal in my own life. And really seeing you talk about porn on that session is like, huh, this guy's talking about porn in a matter-of-fact way. It's out there in life, and here are resources and tools to navigate it so it doesn't consume you and destroy you. And then even joining Porn to Purpose, joining the Liberation Boot Camp, right? I remember when I thought I was like, I'm doing great. I haven't been on, the hardcore porn sites in a while, but I was still scrolling Instagram, YouTube, softcore porn is everywhere on the internet, right? It's like you just accidentally scroll past it most days. Right. And then I was like, oh crap, I have to reset my tracker. Dude, that's a cringe moment.
Yeah.
When you're owning up, it's like, guys, I don't have a 90-day sober streak like I thought. Yeah. I'm starting over from day 0.
Mm-hmm.
And man, that cringe factor was real. And the only reason I was able to overcome that is because I had seen other men in the boot camp lean in. Yeah. And I was like, I don't have any judgment on these men if they reset their trackers. Like we're all just living life one day at a time. You get knocked off, you get back up, get back on the path, right? The last tenet of the Noble Code. If I stray from the path, I vow to return. And honestly, I've even thought of maybe it should be when I stray from the path. Yes. I vow to return. Like, dude, just because I'm on the path, there's probably going to be a day in the future, life is long, where I get knocked off. But seeing men lean in, getting back on the path, allowed me to push past the cringe, be like, okay, yep, I screwed up. Yep. I'm a failure. I'm not as badass as I thought I was. You know what? Nobody laughed. Nobody judged me. I was like, hey man, it's painful when you reset your tracker. That's tough. Yeah. Let's talk through what's going on so we can help you build your framework stronger, build your defenses strong. Because I didn't fail. My framework failed is what really happened.
Yeah.
And it's such a mental shift. There's so many things that go into overcoming the chasm of cringe. It's not, there's no magic pill. It's doing the work, being in the community that's safe, and showing up for myself, changing how I look at pornography. It's still bad, but now I see it for what it really is, a coping mechanism that was incredibly toxic and unhealthy.
Yeah.
Not just the worst sin I could possibly commit as a man.
Yeah. Beautiful, man. Thank you so much for sharing all that. So, brothers, Yeadon mentioned the Liberation Boot Camp today here as part of the Porn to Purpose community. Liberation Boot Camp. I started this community back in 2019, coming off of my own journey with pornography, digging in deep, doing my own work around this, recognizing I needed support. I needed help. I couldn't do this by myself. I couldn't do it in isolation. So began doing my work, ultimately formed the Porn to Purpose community, and several years later met Yeadon. We've been doing the Liberation Boot Camp now for several years. Liberation Boot Camp is the program Yeadon came into. So there it is. So
there the lasers are.
So maybe you've been on a cringe journey yourself, and maybe you recognize, it's going to continue to be a cringe journey, but growth is available to you, and you don't have to do it alone. And if that's you and you're tired of cringing because your face hurts from cringing so much, we want to invite you to check out the Liberation Boot Camp, which is our 6-month program, the program Yeadon went through to learn the tools, the tactics, the strategies, and most importantly, get into community with other men who are on this path, doing this work, leaning in just like you.
It's all about facing our fears, and just taking the next step.
Yep.
You don't need 10 years of sobriety when you start.
Yeah.
You just need a willingness to be authentic and show up for yourself.
Yep. Me personally, I remember distinctly waking up one day like, all right, I've got to do something different here. And I was like, this is not going to work on my own. And I don't want to end up an old man sitting alone in a dark room with my dick in my hand, as they say, sitting in front of a screen. It's true, man. Like that's kind of the trajectory, man. I don't want that. So I ponied up and did the work. Brothers, if you're interested in digging in, leaning into this journey and doing the work, the journey of cringe, we want to invite you to check out the Liberation Boot Camp over at porntopurpose.com, where you can learn more about the program, what we're up to, and apply to jump on a call with either Yeadon or myself. We'd love to connect with you, learn where you are in your journey, and support you however we can.
Yeah, man, you're not alone in this. We've all been there. We know what the cringe factor is. And it's no fun. It's no fun being there. It's painful. So hit us up. Check us out. We want you to have the same freedom. We want you to have the freedom from, wait for it, to go from porn to purpose, to get liberation in your life. Yep. The clue is in the title.
Amen.
Matt, awesome time today. Awesome stuff, bro.
Yeah. Love the topic, brother. So relevant to the journey. Appreciate the conversation around it. Brothers, today, we're always honored to have you with us. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast and stay tuned in for more hot conversations like this. We look forward to seeing you soon, wherever you are in the world. Peace and power, brothers. We are noble men.
We're noble men.